Topic in the video belongs to the lesson Moving Charges and Magnetism. Learning outcomes of this video are moving coil galvanometer construction, conversion of galvanometer into ammeter, conversion of galvanometer into voltmeter.
Namaste student, this is Chalpati, faculty in physics. Now I am going to explain the details about moving coil galvanometer and how can we convert the moving coil galvanometer into ammeter as well as voltmeter.
Moving coil galvanometer. So with this topic you will get the clarity for few questions, that is how the meter can measure current, how a meter can measure the voltage. So the device background is moving coil galvanometer. So if you get the details about the moving coil galvanometer, with this you can convert this galvanometer into voltmeter to measure the current and voltmeter to measure the voltage. So before using this galvanometer as a voltmeter and ammeter, so let me explain the complete details about moving coil galvanometer. The block diagram of moving coil galvanometer will be as shown in this figure. So here you can see there is a coil. So if you pass the current through this coil, it will be in radial magnetic field. So the current carrying coil in magnetic field produces a torque. So due to the torque, the coil will rotate. So with respect to the angle, we will measure the current or voltage. So before going to the topic, so let me explain the construction. So construction in the sense, so here the galvanometer consists of two radial magnets. So why we are using radial magnets? Reason, if you pass the current through the coil, so the coil will get the twist, due to that it will rotate. So whatever may be the angle, so just imagine the curved magnetic field, means north pole and south pole as like a curve, and inside the coil at the center, by taking an axis vertically, if it is rotating, every time the distance between the north pole and the coil outer edge will be at same distance. So coil and magnetic field both are at same distance, so the force will be the same. Then there is no change in the torque, so then there is no jerk while turn. So that is why we are using radial magnetic field. And so whenever we stopped the current, immediately the coil should come back to the original position. So that is why one spring, and the entire coil is balanced with a particular torsional head. So means from the head we are hanging this coil. So by using one phosphor bronze wire. So why we are using phosphor bronze wire? Reason, the phosphor bronze wire is having more Young's modulus, so more rigidity is there, so it can't expand easily. And one more, very less rigidity modulus, means due to the twist, the inside restoring force will not develop in the phosphorus bronze wire. Why? Because by the application of our current, means we are passing the current, then only it should get the twist, and with respect to the spring it should come back middle, due to the inside restoring torque of the wire, it should not get the back torque. So that is why phosphor bronze we are using, so rigidity modulus will be very less, so that is why the wire effect will not be there on the torque due to the current carrying coil. And one mirror we are using, so it is looking like a just a small circle, but actually it is not like a circle. I will show you original diagram, in that you will see. But the coil will be twisted, that according to the twist we are measuring the angle. So to measure the accurate angle without parallax error, we are using the mirror. So by showing the complete picture, I will explain how we can eliminate that error. Now, so construction point of view, details explained. Now, for suppose PQRS is the suspended coil inside. Suppose the coil PQRS is suspended inside the radial magnetic field, and PQ and RS both are equal for suppose that is length L, and as well as QR and PS. So both are same, that is for example width B. Then simply we can say the area of the coil capital A equals to L into B. Now consider, let N be the number of turns in the coil and I is the current passing through the coil in the direction PQRS. So that already mentioned in the diagram also. And B is the strength of the magnetic field. So strength of each turn of the coil. Then we can get the torque acting on the coil. Before going to the torque expression, just observe the diagram. The moving coil galvanometer will be like this. So here exactly the needle is showing 0 position and both sides 30-30 divisions will be there. So according to the current direction, it may deflect left side or right side. For example, according to one current direction, it may go right or it may go left. Next, if you just open the galvanometer, you can see inside the mirror like this. So if you pass the current through the coil, so you can see the coil here. If you pass the current, the needle will get the twist. With respect to that, it will get the turn. So according to the turn, we can identify the current value. And here number of turns you are observing the diagram. So not only turn, you have to see the spring also. So let me show one more. So here clearly you can observe the coil inside and it is wounded on the metal cylinder. Next, radial magnetic field you can see here. So inside coil will be there and the coil is surrounded by radial magnetic field. Next, the spring. So whenever you pass the current, it will get the twist. So with respect to that, it will rotate. Whenever you stop the current, immediately it should come back. So for that purpose, one spring arrangement will be there. So that spring you can observe here, and coil, and the coil is wounded on the metal cylinder you can see. Next topic, torque on a rectangular current carrying loop in uniform magnetic field. So to analyze the torque on rectangular current carrying loop, consider a rectangular current carrying loop as shown in the diagram. So here L is the length and B is the width of the rectangular coil placed in uniform magnetic field B. For suppose I is the current passing through the rectangular loop as shown in the figure. Now to find out the torque on this rectangular loop, we should analyze the force on individual current carrying element. So here L is the current carrying element, B is the current carrying element, and here again L is the current carrying element and this is the B current carrying element. So to find out the force on this current carrying element, we have to follow Fleming's left hand rule. So according to Fleming's left hand rule, if you stretch your left hand 3 fingers as shown in the diagram, if forefinger indicates the magnetic field direction and middle finger indicates the current direction with your left hand, then thumb indicates the force on the current carrying element. Now apply this Fleming's left hand rule to this length element. So here magnetic field direction, so that is with right hand forefinger, and show the current direction with your left hand middle finger. Then definitely, second I am repeating, your left hand forefinger has to show the direction from north to south and the middle finger of your left hand should indicate upward direction. Then the thumb of your left hand definitely will indicate inward to the display. So the force on this current carrying element will be inward. Similarly, if you consider this length element, then magnetic field direction as usual, but current direction now downward. Here upward, but here current direction is downward. So if you show your left hand forefinger direction like this and middle finger direction like this, then thumb will come outward to the display. So that means force direction. So here force on these two elements both are equal according to the values. So force on current carrying element, that is Bill sin theta. So here according to those values all are same for this length element and this length element. So force magnitude is same but in opposite direction. So two forces are acting on the same element but in opposite direction at two different points, so definitely there will be a torque. So due to the torque it will get twist, so with respect to that it will rotate as shown in the diagram. But we have to analyze the remaining content also. So here we analyzed only for length element. Now for B, width. So for suppose if the current carrying element is in the plane of magnetic field, then there is no force on these current carrying elements of width B upward and as well as here down this width element. If you analyze the width B parallel to the magnetic field means, so the angle between length element and magnetic field both will be same and theta 0. So on this width element magnetic field force will be 0, means force due to magnetic field will be 0. For suppose it is making some other angle, then we have to analyze according to the diagram. So if it is making 0 angle, for example it is not making any angle, so then torque will be 0. So if it is making any angle, then there will be a perpendicular distance. So that perpendicular distance we can analyze to the magnetic field. For suppose B is the length element, then towards the magnetic field if you draw a perpendicular, so if it is theta, then this is also theta, so that you can analyze simply. So here it is normal and it is a line, so this is normal to the plane of the rectangular coil, and with the magnetic field it is making an angle theta 90 degrees, then it is 90 minus theta. So if it is 90 minus theta, then this is theta. So if it is theta, then here also theta. I hope you understand. So if you did not understand, if you go a little bit back and if you listen again, definitely you can understand. Now if it is theta, then this element, so then it will be 90 minus theta, or with respect to this theta, so this opposite element we can identify that is as B sin theta. So if it is B, then onto the magnetic field it will be B sin theta. So B sin theta is the perpendicular distance. Then if you can identify the perpendicular distance, further easily we can identify the torque on this rectangular loop. Now one more point. For example, if this plane is exactly perpendicular to the magnetic field, then length element will be perpendicular and as well as this width element also perpendicular. If the width element is perpendicular, then also we can analyze the force direction. So for example, if the current going up and afterwards it's going inside, so if it is exactly perpendicular to the magnetic field, then the current will go inside. Then analyze, so current direction inward and as well as magnetic field direction from north to south. So just keep your left hand middle finger inward and forefinger from north to south, then thumb indicates downward. Similarly, here current will come outward. So then if you change the current direction, then your thumb will show upward direction. So on this width element, force direction downward. On this width element, force direction will come upward. So both will be get cancelled. So every time force will act on these two length elements, with respect to that, it will get twist and continuously it will rotate if you pass the current. Now force on the length element L of the rectangular loop according to the formula, that is F equals to Bill sin theta. So here on this length element and magnetic field, every time it is 90 degrees. So magnetic field direction and length element, if you observe, what it may be the position of the coil, angle between length L and magnetic field B is 90 degrees. So the force will be Bill. So that is the maximum, F equals to Bill. So torque on the current carrying loop, according to the formula, that is force into perpendicular distance. The force is Bill, but the perpendicular distance what we analyzed already, that is B sin theta. So if I substitute that value, so force Bill and perpendicular distance B sin theta, so then the total is torque equals to Bi into L into B, length into width, nothing but area of the rectangular loop, so Bia sin theta. This is the torque on the rectangular coil. If it is having n number of turns, then torque tau equals to B into Nia sin theta. So we know that Nia, so current into area of the current carrying loop, is nothing but magnetic moment. So including number of turns, Nia is the magnetic moment that we already discussed in the previous topic. So simply we can write torque tau equals to, so instead of Nia, capital M and B sin theta. So MB sin theta means we can write as cross product of M bar cross B bar. So torque tau bar equals to M bar cross B bar as a vector notation. Now theory of the galvanometer topic. Let at an instant the normal drawn to the plane of the coil making an angle 90 degrees with the direction of magnetic field, for suppose as shown in the diagram, one coil is there. So that coil is making 90 degrees with the magnetic field. Then at that position you can assume the magnitude of the torque is tau equals to B into Nia. Actually sin theta also should be there, but theta 90 degrees, sin 90 degrees value 1, so that is why B into Nia. N number of turns, I current passing in the coil, and A is the area of the coil. For suppose, let theta be the twist produced in the phosphor bronze strip due to rotation of the coil, and K is the restoring torque per unit twist of the phosphor bronze strip. Then due to the restoring torque, and as well as the spring is connected, so due to that restoring torque will develop, that restoring torque is proportional to the theta twist. So that is why the total restoring torque produced equals to K into theta. So more you twist, then more restoring torque will come. So the theta proportional to restoring torque or restoring torque proportional to theta, the proportionality constant is K. Now at a particular equilibrium position, the needle is showing a particular reading. So at that time, the deflecting torque and restoring torque both are same. So we can equate the both. The deflecting torque is B into Nia and the restoring torque, which is equals to K into theta. Therefore, we can write current I passing in the coil equals to, so that B and N and A we can shift towards right side, then K by NBA into theta. So here K by NBA we are writing as G. So here G nothing but K by NBA, which is also known as galvanometer constant. So here with respect to a particular coil, number of turns constant and radial magnetic field and area of the coil constant, then enter G constant, nothing but current I proportional to theta. How much angle turned by the needle, that much current is passing in the galvanometer. So here by measuring the angle we can get the current. So that is why I proportional to theta. So I value we can analyze by getting the theta value. So by using a needle, how much angle it is turning. So with respect to that we arranged the number of readings, and with respect to that we can measure the value. So to get exact values, calibration required. So that calibration part is not there in our syllabus, but simply here with respect to moving coil galvanometer, how much angle turned with respect to, we can get the magnitude of current. So it means the deflection produced is directly proportional to the current flowing through the galvanometer that we analyzed. Current sensitivity of the galvanometer is the deflection per unit current flowing through it. So we derived already expression, that is current I equals to K by NBA into theta. So from this easily we can express the current sensitivity term. So here according to the definition, deflection per current. So if you shift current towards right side and the K by NAB, if you shift towards left side, then you will get theta by I. So that is current sensitivity denoted by IS, which is equals to theta by I, which is equals to NAB by K. Now with this expression we can say the current sensitivity of the galvanometer means for a small current also, if you want the response in the galvanometer, you have to arrange more number of turns. So more current sensitivity means more deflection you will get for small amount of current, means more sensible. For a small change of current in the circuit also, the response we can get in the needle. So for that we have to arrange more number of turns and more cross-sectional area to the coil which is placed inside the moving coil galvanometer, and magnitude of radial magnetic field also should be more, and K, the proportionality constant value, should be less. Then only the sensitivity of the galvanometer will be high. Now one more, that is voltage sensitivity. So voltage sensitivity of the galvanometer is nothing but deflection per unit voltage. So voltage sensitivity is deflection per unit voltage. Current sensitivity, deflection per current. So here voltage sensitivity, deflection per unit voltage. Nothing but theta by V. So to get the theta by V, just consider this equation. Divide this equation by V and here also by V, then theta by V you will get. So then that is current voltage sensitivity Vs equals to theta by V equals to, so here by V will be there, so here also by V, so theta by V. So if you shift this term towards left side, then NBA by K into I by V. So here I by V, according to Ohm's law, V equals to IR, so nothing but 1 by R equals to IV. So here you can see according to Ohm's law, V equals to IR. So here I by V, nothing but 1 by R. So that is why here at the denominator R is there. So I by V nothing but 1 by R. So that is why R is at denominator. Now if you observe, the voltage sensitivity depends upon the number of turns in the coil and area of the coil and magnetic field produced by the radial magnets, and inversely proportional to the resistance of the coil. So if you want more voltage sensitivity, resistance should be less. But here current sensitivity is independent of resistance, but voltage sensitivity is inversely proportional to the resistance. That we can observe from these two equations. Next, conversion of galvanometer into voltmeter. So to convert the galvanometer into voltmeter, one small resistance that we are calling as shunt resistance, that we have to connect in parallel. So here shunt means low resistance connected in parallel, that we are calling as shunt, low resistance or shunt. So here S is the shunt resistance connected to the galvanometer parallelly. So here why we have to connect the low resistance and in parallel compulsory? There is a reason. Here ammeter means it has to measure the current. To measure the current has to pass, but here more resistance is there, so more amount of current cannot pass. So that is why we have to connect the low resistance and we should make the resistance value low. To convert the galvanometer into ammeter, its resistance need to be lowered. If it is less, more current will be passed through the system, then that current value we can measure, so that maximum current can pass through it and it can be exact reading. So if resistance is there, some current will be stopped, then how much current passing through the galvanometer we can't measure properly. According to Ohm's law, here we can get the Ig or shunt resistance expression. So for that purpose, you can observe it's a parallel circuit. Galvanometer and shunt resistance both are in parallel. So if both are parallel, voltage across the galvanometer and voltage across the shunt both are same. So according to Ohm's law, V equals to IR. For suppose G is the resistance of the galvanometer and Ig is the current passing through the galvanometer. For suppose I is the current, in that Ig is the current passing through the galvanometer, and due to parallel combination some current is deviating. So Ig passed through the galvanometer means remaining current I minus Ig passing through the shunt. So here according to Ohm's law, voltage V equals to IR, so G into Ig. So here according to Ohm's law, voltage across the shunt is S into I minus Ig. That if you write I minus Ig into S, voltage across the shunt equals to voltage across the galvanometer, that is Ig into G. So from this easily we can say shunt value, that is low resistance value, S equals to Ig by I minus Ig into capital G, that is resistance of the galvanometer. So by using this formula we can do many numericals. It is useful to solve the problems based on the moving coil galvanometer, which is converted into ammeter. And in practical you can observe, so moving coil galvanometer means the needle will be at 0 and both sides 30-30 division will be there, but ammeter means it's starting from 0. So if you pass the current, it will show the deflection. So according to the deflection we can get the current value. So it will be calibrated, so according to the current the readings given. Next, conversion of galvanometer into voltmeter. To convert the moving coil galvanometer into voltmeter, we have to connect high resistance in series. So why we have to connect high resistance in series? Here we want to measure the voltage. So to measure the voltage, current drop should be there, then only perfect voltage we can measure. So to convert the galvanometer into voltmeter, its resistance needs to be increased so that there is no potential drop across it. Means the total current we want to measure, then only the perfect voltage difference we will get, then exact voltage we can measure, because with high resistance no current pass through it. So with respect to that, how much voltage across the terminals, that easily we can identify. If resistance is less, current will pass, then as compared with original value the galvanometer will give low voltage. So if it is having high resistance it can give exact, and with respect to the high voltage no problem to the circuit. Why? Because the voltmeter we are connecting parallel, so current will pass as usual in the circuit. So across the two terminals we are measuring the voltage, so the current will not pass through the galvanometer, nothing but voltmeter, then no current loss in the circuit also. Now according to Ohm's law we can analyze again. So here R is the resistance connected and Ig is the current passing through it. So here galvanometer and resistor both are in series, so same current will pass. So in previous case both are in parallel, shunt resistance galvanometer both are parallel, so voltage constant. Here in series same current is passing, so current constant. So according to Ohm's law current is same, so simply we can say the total voltage V equals to total resistance into current. So current is Ig, total resistance is R plus G, or G plus R. G is the resistance of the galvanometer, R is the resistance of the resistor connected to the moving coil galvanometer. Now further, if you want to give G value, so send Ig towards right, then G plus R equals to V minus Ig. So that implies resistance has to be connected to the galvanometer R equals to, so V by Ig minus G. So with this formula we can solve the numericals based on galvanometer which is converted into voltmeter. And in practical lab you can see voltmeter, so with starting 0 and according to the deflection the voltage values you can measure. Next, differences between ammeter and galvanometer. So here ammeter, it is calibrated in ampere or any submultiple, either like milliammeter or milliampere or microampere. But galvanometer will show the only deflection and the values up to 30. So that means it has divisions without calibration. Means divisions we can say, how much value we can't say. Next, it is used to measure large currents, but the galvanometer is used for small currents only. That is also we have to calibrate how much value for one division that we have to identify. So for that different methods are there in our lab. One experiment is there, half deflection method. With respect to that we can get what is the value of one division. Next, the effective resistance of the ammeter is very low due to shunt. So shunt resistance, that is very low resistance connected in parallel. So the effective resistance will be decreased. But the resistance of the galvanometer also low. But as compared with the galvanometer resistance, ammeter resistance will be much less. Why? Because the shunt we are connecting in parallel. So if you connect one resistance to the another resistor, net resistance decreases. If you connect the resistance in series, then only resistance increases. Here in ammeter we are connecting, both are in parallel, so net resistance decreasing. So that is why resistance will be much low. Next, the zero division in this is at one end of the scale. I already shown. So in the diagram you observed. So the reading will start from 0, but in galvanometer the zero division is in the middle of the scale. Next, comparison of ammeter and voltmeter. The first point, it is a device used for measuring current in the electrical circuit. Voltmeter, nothing but it is a device used for measuring potential difference between 2 points in a circuit. Next, second one, the resistance of an ideal ammeter is 0. So if resistance is 0, so complete current will pass without any obstruction, then we can measure exact current. Then only that is ideal ammeter. If you want to prepare an ideal ammeter, the current should be 0. So it's a theoretical one, so practically 0 resistance we can't give. And similarly, if you want to measure perfect voltage, the current passing through the voltmeter should be 0. So for that infinite resistance you have to connect. So this is also practically not possible, but theoretically if you want to prepare an ideal voltmeter, the resistance you have to connect to the galvanometer, that is in series, that is infinite resistance. Next, a MCG, nothing but moving coil galvanometer, is converted into a ammeter by connecting a suitable row resistance in parallel to it. So low resistance connected in parallel, nothing but shunt we have to connect. But here a moving coil galvanometer is converted into voltmeter by connecting a suitable high resistance in series. So galvanometer we can convert into ammeter or voltmeter. So by using two different resistors, we already discussed that is the point. If you connect low resistance in parallel, then ammeter, high resistance in series, it will be voltmeter. Next, fourth point, an ammeter should always be connected in series in the circuit. Why? Because we are measuring current passing through the circuit. So current passing through the circuit means the ammeter you have to connect in the circuit in series, then only the current will pass through the ammeter. That current, how much passing, that we can measure. There is no loss of current because ammeter means very low resistance, nothing will change in the circuit. Now to measure the voltage, that is across the two terminals. So across the two terminals means voltmeter terminals we have to connect in parallel. So a voltmeter should always be connected in parallel in the circuit to measure the voltage. Thank you.